Hey there. Welcome to Career Focus, a podcast where we talk about making work for you. Whether you're at the start, middle, or peak of your career, we all have curiosities about trends, ways to improve our skills, and honestly, just trying to figure things out. My name is Dan Brodsky, and I draw from my experience in career readiness, recruiting, and corporate training to untangle these challenges that I know are happening out in the job market and in day-to-day workplace experiences that we might be encountering on a daily basis. So I chat with people about these topics, and we uncover insights for both work and for life. So settle in, and let's tune in to today's Career Focus. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Career Focus. Today, I am sitting down with Erika Badan. Erika is the CEO of Food 52. And prior to that, she was the former CEO of Barstool Sports. She has a long background in sales and marketing for a lot of well-known organizations like Fidelity, Microsoft, Yahoo, and AOL. And she served on lots of different boards like World Wrestling Entertainment, Torchy's Tacos, and Premier Lacrosse League. She's been called one of the most creative people in business by Fast Company and one of the most powerful women in U.S. sports by Forbes. She wrote a book last year in 2024 called Nobody Cares About Your Career, and she actually recently aired a brand new podcast called Work. So, Erika, I could go on about all of your career accolades and background, and we'll dive into some of those today, but welcome to Career Focus.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You have done so much throughout your career, and so I'm just thrilled that you're carving out some time to join me. Can you tell us just a little bit about your story? How did you get your start, and what are you up to now?
Yeah, I'm the only person in my family that has a corporate job, and I mean like extended family. So my parents were teachers. I was born in Colorado. I grew up in New England. Never really knew what I was going to do with myself or my life. Worked hard, studied as much as I could, got in trouble all the time, messed around, was an idiot. I went to a liberal arts college. I played sports and by chance was lucky and got an internship at Fidelity Investments. It was my first time in a big city, which was Boston, and it was my first time in any type of corporate environment. And it was a really tedious, cruddy, boring internship, which was I was a receptionist. So I just sat on the 12th floor and opened the door. It was a really good summer for me because it taught me a lot about work and what it means to be a self-starter at work and making the most of opportunities that land in your lap. And I worked really hard. I did every job I could imaginably do. I did anything for anyone so that I didn't have to sit and watch the door all day. That landed me a job at Fidelity in the legal department. When I graduated, I worked for Fidelity for a bunch of years in a bunch of different jobs, but I really learned to like work, and I learned the correlation between putting effort in, being of service to other people, having integrity and enthusiasm and caring about what I did every day, and being really curious, which I think comes from teachers as parents, which is like, I just always wanted to learn. And, my career went on from there. I worked at a bunch of ad agencies. I worked at Microsoft. I was the CMO of AOL. I was part of a bunch of failure startups and made a ton of missteps the whole way and landed at Barstool Sports as the CEO in 2016. That was a huge, wild, pretty successful run. And now I'm trying to take a new challenge in the lifestyle and home space.
Yeah, so totally different space at Barstool Sports compared to Food 52. What is it that excited you about Food 52? I think you were a board member maybe before you joined as the CEO, but how did you get involved?
There's a couple of things about your career, which you obviously talk about a lot and you give a lot of insight into, which is I always wanted that every job I had would open up 5 new jobs for me. I think I would describe myself as successfully insecure, which is I was always worried about having a job and not getting laid off and making sure I could make a living, that I was really, really focused on every job I had should open new jobs. I remember living in Boston and having a pretty senior job at an ad agency and saying to myself, like, eesh, there's no other jobs at this level in Boston. Like, I'm in trouble. If I stay here, I need to move to New York. And because there will be more opportunities for me. And Barstool Sports was an incredible experience. I loved that job unlike any other. It was a wild company and a wild time. But I also, after being there almost a decade, was like, I know what I'm doing here. Like, it doesn't scare me. There's nothing radical that's happening that we haven't encountered in the past decade. And I think that you get to these moments in your career where you're like, do I want to keep learning and trying something new, or do I want to rest where I am? And what I liked about Food 52 was, it was a company of the size that I like, not early stage startup, but not an established company. 2 is the lifestyle food home space is a massive space. Food is the 3rd biggest topic on TikTok. So it's a huge market. And it's a totally different customer than I had at Barstool Sports, which I was ready for. I can sell beer to 23-year-olds like it's my job, and I'm ready for something new.
That's cool. And Food 52 is a community started mostly related to food and sharing recipes, but it's turned into selling different merchandise. It's turned into selling different products related to lifestyle and home. I mean, was that something that you as a consumer found yourself?
I'm kind of a homebody, and I like my home. I like style. I like textures. I like design. And I liked that Food 52 was this idea of creating design and discovering beautiful design, whether it was tabletop or cookware or lighting design or decor, and telling stories around it and creating it with a community. I thought that was really interesting. It's very similar to Barstool Sports. What Barstool Sports did was to create humor and content and personality and to deliver it to very specific communities. And what I liked about Food 52 is it's really the chance to do that plus make product and to make and build design, which is super exciting and very new to me.
So in the last decade or so, you've been working for large brands that any average Joe may recognize. But before you did that, from what I understand, your job was a little bit less, like I would say, glamorous on the surface. Did you always envision yourself working for companies or organizations that were aligned with some interests and things that you knew about? Or did you just kind of fall into that as you got a little bit more seasoned in your career?
No, I never thought that I would work in anything glamorous. And I think you can find joy in whatever you work in, and mostly the people you work with, and the idea of building something and taking on a mission together. I feel really lucky to have worked in sports. And prior to working in sports, I worked in music. And it still feels very lucky to this day. It was an accident. But the thing that wasn't an accident was, and I write a lot about this in my book, is that taking every opportunity and making the most of it and leaving the place you are better than where you found it and putting the work effort in and learning as much as you can. If you do that in your career, you will find yourself, even if you're not passionate about whatever it is, you will find yourself in a best possible position to pursue something that is interesting to you because the skills are transferable. And so for me, it was truly more of an accident. I was passionate about those areas. I gravitated towards them. I wanted to work in media, which is where I've spent the majority of my career, and sports and culture fuel media. But I really think the bigger thing than that is early in your career is just developing the work ethic and being able to take feedback, wanting to work hard, wanting to build things, wanting to teach other people. I think those are the things that set you up to have choices.
Very cool. Anyone that's listening probably can tell there's a level of authenticity that you bring, whether it's talking about work or it's at the workplace. As you get more experience in your career, people start to understand as you move up the corporate ladder, people have to kind of blend into the vibe that you're giving. But there's a lot of corporate environments, high growth environments where authenticity is a little bit difficult to bring, yet you're still expected to be innovative. You're still expected to be highly valuable very quickly. Can you talk a little bit about how anyone, or maybe how you did, showcase your personality, your interests, be authentic while also kind of aligning with the needs of a high growth environment?
I think the biggest thing at work is like when you walk through the door or you turn on your Zoom at home, if you're working from home, is you're stepping through to some place, you're stepping into something. I always wanted to be about something bigger than myself. And so I really tried early in my career to work for people I could really learn from and to work for people who pushed me to a point that I was uncomfortable. I had a boss for 12 years who was tough, like tough. And I took it and I liked it because I knew every time she was shooting down my idea or telling me that this wasn't up to the level or this needed to be done again, that I was learning. I was getting better from that. And I think that's really important. So I think early in your career, being in the aura or in the environment with people who want to push is a good way to learn. I think your environment is relentless and you learn ostensibly or just environmentally from what's around you. And then when you get to be a manager, you get to a later place in your career, you have to set that tone and you have to set that vision and you have to create that place. And if you set a vision that's big, that people can buy into, that is bigger than yourself, you can be free to be yourself because the vision isn't you, if that makes sense. Like a lot of times at work, I see this now a lot. People are so about themselves that it's only about themselves. And that's not inspiring to other people. And I think the other piece of it is if you set about creating something bigger, it actually makes you very free to be yourself because you also are in service of this vision that you're trying to create. And I think that's important. I always liked that. Like I'm a weirdo at work. I like to laugh and I like jokes. And I have a head of finance here at Food 52 who I've named the Professor of Doom. And I just only call him the Professor of Doom. And I think it's funny. And he thinks it's funny, but I'm like, that's kind of weird, but it's authentic. The reason we can do that is we're on a mission to do something bigger. And so I think being part of something bigger is actually very freeing to bring yourself. And I think people want to be in the trenches with other people who they trust will work as hard and are as committed. And you want people who you can relate to or feel human in the trench. And I think that comes with having a vision.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. You have to be a human, especially now as companies are going back to working in the office and we're expected to show up as ourselves and as our professional selves. It's nice when they can blend together. When you're authentic, a lot of people will want to follow you. And I think that shows a level of vulnerability as well, which builds trust and camaraderie.
100%. I'm always very wary if I hire someone and they don't end up bringing anyone from anywhere they've been. I think it's like not a great sign. And so I agree. I think people follow people.
Definitely. So I want to talk a little bit about your book. Nobody Cares About Your Career, Why Failure is Good, The Great Ones Play Hurt, and Other Hard Truths. Can you talk about why you wrote the book and maybe some of your favorite parts about it?
So I wrote the book. It came out last June. I'd never written a book and I was excited to see if I could. And I always cared too much about work in general. Like just as a human, I just always cared too much. Like I was writing the emails about the thing and how I felt about it. And we should do this. And I've been like that my entire career. And writing a book was actually very cathartic because I had a place to put it that actually wanted it, if that makes sense. And I started to write the book. We had just sold Barstool Sports to Penn Entertainment, and my job was really changing. My job had been very free form, high flying, very creative. We could do anything we wanted. Everything was possible. And then I was in a big corporate environment that was about like, hey, you got to make the finance forecast and the forecast has to be 100% accurate. And so I was missing the creativity of Barstool, really. So the book came at a good time for me where I was looking for a creative outlet. And then I think the third piece is that I get hundreds of DMs a week with people with work questions. And I was answering them on the train one by one. I was in my DMs this morning on LinkedIn with somebody who's been laid off. And, what do I do? How do I do it? And I was like, gosh, it would be more efficient if I wrote a book instead of just responding
Right.
to DMs. And so that's what I did.
Mhm. It's funny you say that. I was telling my girlfriend recently about the upcoming interview that I had with Erika. And I told her about your background, and I read her like something I found online about your book. And I showed it to her, and she's like, that is a badass book. She wants to read it now. So
That's great.
yeah, I mean, it really is super relevant to what's happening right now. And what I really appreciate about you is that you're very authentic. You showcase a lot of personality, and you also obviously are like a badass businesswoman. There's a lot to learn about the future of work from people like you who not only know what's happening now and how companies can continue to grow in the type of market, but also the human side to work and how impactful that is on the growth of business and ultimately our happiness as humans, right?
Yep, I totally agree with that. I think work should make you really happy. And you know what? Work most days is so frustrating. Like I'm having a Monday, it's so frustrating. But what a luxury to be able to think and do and collaborate. It's such a luxury. And I think most business books are written by somebody who says that they're perfect. And I am like the furthest thing from perfect. And I don't like perfection. So my voice is different in that where I'm like, I've made every mistake in the book and you're going to make every mistake in the book too. So like, we might as well get after it. And then I think the second piece is it's a journey, and it's really a journey with yourself. And you've got to decide what makes you happy. The reason the book's called Nobody Cares About Your Career is that I really don't think anybody cares about your career. And I think that's a great thing because if you want to be an astronaut, be an astronaut. You want to be a garbage collector, be a garbage collector. You want to be an individual contributor, you have no interest in managing, don't manage people, you know? And I think a lot of times we get on this like track of I should be something and I'm supposed to do a certain thing or be a certain way. And I just think it's important, especially for people in the middle of their career or the beginning of their career, to not buy into that.
Totally. I mean, I've seen that just with myself. I'm 30 years old. I've been working full time for 8 or 9 years now. But as I continue to get older and grow just as an adult, I'm starting to think like, are some of the things I'm doing or some of the things I've done or some of the things I've thought about doing, are they really aligned with me? Is that something that's going to make me happy?
Yeah.
You know, what are the types of organizations or mission statements that I really can get behind so that work is even more enjoyable than all the jobs I've had so far? And so if I'm thinking about it, hopefully a lot of other people are thinking about it too.
Yeah, I mean, we spend most of our lives at work. So it's a lot of time, and it's a lot of time to not be growing.
So you worked for Food 52. You were the CEO at Barstool for quite a long time. Did you ever envision having this type of success in your career? Did you ever want this type of success?
I wanted it for sure. I worked really, really, really hard for too long. And in probably some ways I regret, but I feel very grateful to have been able to work with so many different types of people and to be able to work in content and the internet. You know, it was an accident that I worked in the internet. And I think about it for the people who are now starting to work in AI. And I think, wow, like you're at the beginning of something that's going to be so big. That would be my one thing, is find a profession, find an industry that is going through incredible change, and it can create incredible change and opportunity for you. I think I always wanted to be something, and I always wanted really, really, really like to work. I didn't envision that it would be this or this way or, you know, this how, but I'm more grateful for all the lessons I've learned than anything else, if being honest. And it's partly, you know, why I wrote the book. It's partly why I want to have the podcast. And, you know, now I'm getting to a point, I'm in my late 40s, and I'm like, I want to coach now. Like I want to give, for anybody who cares, and there's a lot of people who will not, to be the benefit of what I've learned.
For anyone that maybe is interested in tuning into your new show called Work, are they going to see some of those coaching elements embedded in those episodes?
Yeah, I think they'll see like a whole bunch of things, like big topics at work. Like, do you work from home or remote work versus work from home? How to get over yourself at work. Like, I think one of the really hard things right now at work is that the pandemic changed everything. You know, the internet's changed everything. The pandemic changed everything. AI is going to change everything. But people stopped buying into something. And I think being remote has really hurt this sense of connection that people have with their jobs and with their employer and honestly with themselves in a lot of ways. And then I also think people really stopped managing. I think it's very hard to really get managed over Zoom or over video or remote. I just think it's hard. Conflict is hard. Feedback is hard. Trust is hard. And so this podcast is really a discussion about like things you feel too stupid to ask, like what does EBITDA mean, to what are the big topics people at work are wrestling with, to how do you navigate your own personal career.
Awesome. Such juicy topics. Is it you speaking and answering questions that you've gotten from community members? Is it you interviewing folks? What's the style?
It's not interviewing. It'll be a whole bunch of things. I think we need to figure out what it should be. I think it'll be a lot of questions. I think it will be topics where I'm just ranting and talking about them. I think it'll be people I'm trying to learn from. So I think you'll see all those things.
Awesome. Well, excited. I know by the time this episode airs, you maybe will have just put out an episode or two. So excited to continue to see the content that you pump out. And I'm going to, of course, include all of your social media handles in the show
You're
notes.
the best.
But where else can people stay connected to you if they want to continue to learn from Erika?
Oh, I think LinkedIn. I like LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn's a great place to find me. Instagram's a good place to find me. The New York City Ferry is a good place to find me. So I think those are the places.
Well, cool. Well, Erika, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to chat with me about work. We share the common passion about it. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate your time and welcome back anytime.